Welcome to the Bearded Finisher Podcast, your one-stop show for all things finishing and coatings. Your host, Zach, and a variety of industry experts will guide you through the art of perfecting your finishing and business game. From seasoned pros to fresh faces, get ready for tips, tricks, and trends to elevate your knowledge and business to the next level.
Tanner Mullen, welcome to the show, man. How's it going?
It's great, man. Happy to be here.
Man, I'm glad to have you on. I've been seeing a lot of your stuff online, and we haven't really talked a whole lot, but I was like, man, I got to get the DripJobs ads, and my infatuation with software that streamlines our industry is probably a little on the obsessive side. So
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to play with DripJobs, but 15. Oh man, it's been, I've been out of the business for almost 5 years, but having my company back in the mid 2000s, was always trying to find software. I mean, that's always been the hardest thing, is to find a software that's not Excel. I mean, I could probably show
tricky.
you 30 Excel templates because, you've noticed everyone does it just a little bit different. Like no one's the same when it comes to the estimating.
No, it's 100% true.
So let's kick it off. I mean, let's hear your story. I know you've got a painting company, you've got DripJobs, family. How'd you get started?
Yeah, dude. So moved to Florida. I was 13. My dad got a job with a painting company, and he could paint. He learned from his dad, his stepdad. So I'm generational. Learned the trade. He got a job with a painting company, started off as a painter, made his way up to crew leader. And this company's still around today. They do more new construction commercial. This was during the recession. He made his way up. He was supervisor of projects. So during this time, I'm 12, 13, and I drive around with him during, days I didn't have school when he was working. So I really got exposed to painting, at a high level. But I was like, dude, I'll never do this. But it was good money on the weekends. He'd wake me up in the morning. I'd get $60 cash to work with him for the day. I'd prep the house, tape baseboards and move furniture and, fold tarps and, you name it. My dad was really good. He was good at what he did. But again, never crossed my mind. He was the typical husband-wife painting arrangement where he would do the painting, she would answer the phone, do the marketing, There's so many of those stories. Fast forward a couple years, mom passed away. It was a cancer. She had stage 4 lymphoma. It was a quick and fast, passing. And he kind of just gave up everything, as one would imagine. So he just lost all motivation. This was during the opioid pandemic. So one thing led to another, and he really gave up, developed a drug addiction. And I was away at college, and I had a little sister back home. So him and my little sister lived together, and, just seeing what was transpiring, for me, I had a corporate bank job, dude. I was working my way up. I was a loan officer, and then, I was in the running to maybe manage a branch at 22. I'd sold cars before that, worked in the restaurant. So I have a real wide range of industry experience in all these different sectors. And I was like, okay, well, I care about my family. I'm going to move home and I want to start a business. There had been a guy that came into my bank often, and he had launched a painting business, and he was kind of coming in to set up his business bank account. I'm still friends with him to this day. And I kept pressing him with questions. I'm like, what do you mean you're starting a painting business? And I was like, if he can do it, I could definitely do it, and that wasn't to knock him, but I'm like, that's interesting. My dad paints, and I'm thinking, I could probably help him. I could probably get him off of, the drugs and help, and I always wanted to own a business. So I'm like, you know what, this is neat. So I started Googling and came across Eric Barstow. Probably know him.
Mm-hmm.
Familiar with Eric?
Yep.
So he's painting business pro. I bought his course when it was $300, and that was a really hard purchase for me. I don't know. I just felt like it was way too much. I've never purchased online learning before, but he was crushing it with YouTube videos. So he had a lot of free content. He was one of the pioneers for educating people on painting businesses. Actually just emailed me yesterday. So I connect with him still. It's awesome, man. Painting business is the best community.
It is.
Anyway.
Yeah.
It is. It's awesome. Anyway, so took his course and this epiphany occurred. I was like, wait a minute, Eric was teaching this idea that I could just sell paint jobs and find someone else to paint. And duh, but like my whole life I'd seen my dad do both. He'd sell the paint job and then he'd go paint, which deteriorated his body. Obviously he worked crazy hours. And it really just like when he went on his own. So the recession happened and the company he worked for obviously lost their contracts. So he had to kind of go out on his own, So I saw this happen for a few years and to me, it was like this foreign concept. So I was like, hey, Dad, check this out. And I send him Eric's videos. I'd be like, hey, look, like we can use your brains, and we can, I could sell them and maybe you can manage the project. So I don't know how to really paint. I just know how to prep from when I was a kid. I can roll a wall. So moved back home, traded in everything, man, put in the 2 weeks. I said, you know what? I'm going to go all in on this. I have a good feeling about it. I found Home Advisor. You ever hear of Home Advisor?
I've heard from their sales reps more times than I'd like to admit.
Yeah. I think they called me today too. Anyway, so heard about Home Advisor and coming from a car sales background, like and life insurance. So the idea of leads in relation to, business, there was a connect that I already had, right? In other words, I knew the concept of more leads equals more opportunities equal more sales, right? So when I worked at...
It's a numbers game.
Yeah. It's a numbers game, right? So when I worked in life insurance, they would give me a stack of leads and that was like this thick, dude. It was huge. And they'd say, call them, and, I'd strike gold every now and again. So I had already built the muscle of follow up. And when I got Home Advisor leads, this was like taking candy from a baby, dude, because these people wanted the painting service. I just had to pay for it and I had some money saved. And I knew that, okay, I got to buy these leads, but I was a little surprised because even though they requested the paint job, there was still a disconnect there. They wouldn't answer the phone, right? So I'm in this little bit of a dilemma, and being in these other sectors, life insurance, we had software, car business, we had software. You can't be in the car business without software, right?
No.
This is foreign. Even the restaurant, we had a POS system, right? Like, so when you start a business in the painting business, your first thought is, I need a software, right? So what did I do? Signed up for Jobber, signed up for Estimate Rocket, signed up for Joist, right? I probably signed up for all of those 3 or 4 times, right? Trying to find the best one, then doing my own spreadsheet like you probably did, right? Many times. And none of them were sales heavy because I come from a sales background. I know that in order for me to be good at sales, number one, I need to be able to visually see where my customers are in the buying process. So in other words, when we would get leads in the car business, we'd say, okay, is this person, in the discovery phase, or are they just asking questions? Did they do a test drive, right? Have they been presented numbers? Right? Did they outline
your timeline and your funnel?
That's right. So you have an idea of how to approach the individual in a follow-up, right? It's very important. Like, hey, Joanne, thanks for coming into the dealership today. Are you ready for that test drive? Okay. Like, so in other words, like we knew where that person was in the cycle of buying. And I'm like, okay, well, really, I could break this down in painting. Okay. And the painting cycle was, we have a Home Advisor lead who doesn't know who I am. They know who Home Advisor is, but they don't know who Premium Painting is. So that's what I would consider someone that's cold. And I found through following up that not all of those people are ready for estimates. So like if they just bought a house and they say, well, I was just trying to get an idea. I can't get into the house yet, so you can't do an estimate yet. Like, what do we do with that person? Right? It's like, okay, well, call us when you're ready. No, like I was always on the side of we need to be aggressive when it comes to business. We need to pursue people. And I think that's one of the mindset shifts that, a growth minded business owner needs to adopt is
100. Like, yeah. Where are you at in your business cycle?
Pursue the business, pursue it. So what happened is, the idea is from there, you have a customer who, you have a customer that was cold, and we need to categorize them differently now because we already spoke to them. And now we call them warm. So I was developing this on a spreadsheet, right? So I'd organize all the customers. Then you'd have estimate requested, like people that send in requests, estimate scheduled, customers that are in draft, customers that are proposal sent, customers that are proposal rejected, right? So you have 7 stages of pre-purchase that, for me, the reason I did this, Zach, is so when I followed up, I didn't sound redundant. I didn't sound like a robot.
Exactly.
Right. So it'd be weird if you got an estimate from a customer and you got a phone call that says, "Hey, are you ready for your estimate?" So in other words, the reason people don't follow up is for this exact reason, is because they're disorganized and they don't have context. No one's just going to follow up without context. So that was the first problem I wanted to solve, because I knew that follow-ups were important. I knew that reaching out was important. I knew that people were busy. And guess what? They're not getting any more bored. People are getting busier than they've ever been. Like, there's so much going on. People are being pulled in 1,000 different directions. So that's where it all started, man. That was the premise of why I started to pursue this journey.
Okay. So like, how long did you have premium, or was it pretty early in the beginning? Are premium and DripJobs pretty parallel, or were you running premium for a year or two before you jumped into the DripJob side?
Oh yeah, it was a year or two, right? So I mean, I think it started off. This is interesting because it really started off with me just trying to build my own solution. I'm like, okay, first problem I need to solve is the fact that these leads are coming in at all times of the day. So the problem with that is that I'm not always available when these leads come in. And I was introduced to the concept of speed to lead actually by the representative that signed me up for Home Advisor. She was like, "Hey, just so you know, the quicker you call these people, the better. Sometimes you can get them while they're still submitting information." And a little light bulb went off. I said, "That's actually pretty good information. Thank you." So as soon as the lead would come in, I'd do everything I can to call them right away within seconds. And people would be surprised. They'd be like, "Oh my God, you're quick. I'm still clicking the button." Yeah. I'm like, "Yeah, they send it to us right away." Right. And so that creates a good experience. But what it also does is it allows me to capitalize on the emotional peak of the desire, right? So we're tapping into psychology when we respond quickly to people's inquiries. Harvard did a study on this where it indicates just the dramatic drop off in relation to time, in, I would say, the amount of time that goes by after the initial request. And there's a dramatic drop off that happens that pretty much says, like, the longer you wait, the less chance you have to convert a lead. So I knew that I needed to supplement my own abilities through.
Yeah, you can't respond
automation.
to emails all hours of the day. Yeah.
You can't respond to anything. So there's weekends, right, which represent 110 days a year. And then you have nighttime, which no one wants to work after 7 p.m. or it feels kind of unprofessional to call people. So this was happening. I'd get leads at 1 a.m. I'd get leads at, 1:30 a.m., 6 a.m. And it's like, guess what? Like, you're getting mad at Home Advisor for sending them, and then you're shutting it off. And it's just kind of like a mess. Anyway, so I wanted to create my own solution. So what did I do? I went online. I tried to figure out how I could connect Home Advisor to an email autoresponder. And the concept of connecting these two things was foreign because Zapier. Are you familiar with Zapier?
Yeah. Vaguely, not crazy. Maybe go into it a little bit.
Yeah. Zapier is kind of like a tool that connects all different apps. So when we built DripJobs, we built endpoints, which is a technical term that pretty much says they're like little like signals that only communicate with Zapier. So it can be read by Zapier, and then Zapier connects those signals with all the other apps, and then Zapier connects our apps together. That's why, in DripJobs, if you get a lead on Facebook, we can connect it to DripJobs because it's happening through Zapier, because Zapier is connected to Facebook and DripJobs is connected to Zapier. So it's kind of like this middle manager, right? So the cool part about this is that they had this thing called a webhook, and a webhook lets you connect various things on the internet to other apps. So what I did was I got a webhook and I sent it to HomeAdvisor. I said, hey, I want you to start sending my leads to this webhook. I got the webhook to get me the data, and then I sent it to an email autoresponder. And what would happen is that as soon as that lead came in at any time, it would trigger the email, and that would go out to the customer, and it would say, hey, this is Tanner with Premium Painting. I got your request. Please let me know what time works best for you for your estimate. Okay. And what would happen is, Zach, someone would reply to that. And I'd be like, oh my God, I just discovered fire. Right? It worked. So then my brain's churning. I'm like, okay, this worked. But how can I get them to the next step? Because I still have to respond back and be like, okay, I'll get you scheduled. Or,
you need more data.
It's still need more data. So I put a link in there to this booking app called You Can Book Me. And I said, hey, you could just click here and pick a time. And they would click the link, pick the time, and book the appointment. And then from there, it was off to the races. So I started building all these cool things. So like once the estimate was done, I changed the status in the system, and then it would send them another sequence. So I was building this thing, and I called it Trade Thrive. And I brand the emails. I made the emails look real good. And I was starting to like really hit automation hard. And I was really excited about it. Right. So the cool thing about this is, and I'll kind of speed this up here, is that I started sharing my story on Instagram. And I started meeting painting contractors, and they were experiencing the same problems, right? So I'm like, hey, I'll build it for you. If you want to take my system, I'll just build it for you. You pay me monthly, I'll upkeep it. I'll set you up with the same system I have. And that started to be kind of like my little side hustle where I was building out these automations for other painting contractors. But the problem is that they were like, well, I'm using this app for estimates, and I'm using this app for payments, and I'm using this app for scheduling. And I'm like, oh my God, this is getting really difficult. I got to manage all the passwords, and things weren't connecting. But I saw an opportunity there. I had at one point 50 companies that paid me to do these automations. So I'm like, okay, this is going somewhere, right? So that's kind of where DripJobs was born.
I love that because, one of my mentors, my father-in-law, who was in the painting business forever, he would say, and I had other guys say that, everyone gets stuck on this fact that you've got your vision. That's how you're going to be successful. I just got to get to my goal. Like the faster that entrepreneurs realize that the road to success and your vision, I don't know of a single son of a gun that I've ever met who's successful that had a straight line to their vision.
No way.
You wanted to be independent.
No, like it's incremental.
Yeah, it's incremental, but it's going to take a 90-degree left, and then it's going to go right, and then it's going to go backwards, then it's going to go left again. I mean, the road just going to curve, but your story is just excellent proof that you don't know what the journey is going to look like. You just got to get in, buckle down, and hang on, because that's absolutely crazy way to get to DripJobs. Because DripJobs essentially is just integrating all of them.
It is. It's integrating all the elements of sales and project manager.
So when we're talking about like DripJobs, what was one of the biggest challenges that you had to face when you were transitioning into the software world? And then, obviously, how did you beat it?
Dude, this is so cool because software and painting are very, very similar.
Really?
It's really interesting. Yeah, no one will know this but me. Okay. Maybe, I don't know, maybe other guys. I don't know. I see things like from a high level, and I'm thinking, okay, when you're managing a painting project, especially when you're managing a team, you have to understand that like your team can only do so much without getting overwhelmed. So what you kind of do as a good manager is you position the right team members on the right job. You give them bite-sized chunks, right? Because if they wind up looking at the big project, they get overwhelmed, right? And you withhold the next thing until they've bit through it a little bit. Because if you hit them with the next thing, then they're going to kind of get overwhelmed. They're going to get demotivated, right? So it's the same thing with software. We have developers. They're like the painters, and they're creating a masterpiece, but they need to do it one room at a time. And it's like I have all the ideas, and you kind of you can't throw all that at them. You have to let them work on that one room. So there's a discipline that's kind of, involved. That it's the same thing with, again, painting a really big house. It's like, dude, you look at that big house, you're going to think, how are we going to get this done? So keeping the painters focused, keeping them motivated, letting them feel heard. Like there's sometimes from a business perspective, I'm like, dude, how is this job not done? Like we've been there. How do you need another day? Right. And sometimes, dude, you have to level out with them and go to the job. You need to walk around it and you need to understand the hurdles. They might be dealing with a crazy customer that keeps asking them questions, that keeps making it difficult for them, And it's the same thing with software. It's like, dude, like I had to do a really good job of understanding how software really works. So my ideas aren't overwhelming. They're educated and my expectations aren't out of line. They're respected because it's like, okay, Tanner understands what's required here to bring the vision to life. Right. So for me, there's some similarities there. So the big challenge is in software is withholding the vision, because I have the vision, right? I know what I want, but software takes time. It takes time. It's like crafting a masterpiece and it's not going to be done today.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to evolve over time too. I mean,
it is. And it has.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's definitely.
One thing I always did, and it sounds like a similarity in that aspect of, I used to always tell my guys, they used to get tired of hearing it. I mean, and it's old adage, we're going to this big project and the guys look at you going, dude, we're going to be here for like 6 months doing this project. We got to do this, got to do that. And you're like, I just always look at them and be like, how do you eat an elephant? I mean, like the first month, they're like, well, one bite at a time, just bite off one room and that's it. And then by the end of 15 years, and they'd be like, guys, and I'm like, Edgar, how do you? And he'd be like, damn it, shut up, and just walk off.
Yeah.
Just it's going to be here tomorrow. It's going to be here the next day. Just take your time.
One day will be the day.
Exactly. And then, again, on top of that is setting those expectations. And I feel like if you give them a little bit, you can give them some freedom. You set the expectation of what I want now, and they get to that one, and then you give them the next expectation, but not micromanaging them as much. Let them have the freedom to get the job done, but you just tell them what the goal is and what we got to do the next 3 days. And that's it.
100%. And I think for me, man, like I still look, these are two totally different businesses, right? But it's cool to see the similarities. Also like, I still love the painting business. Like, even though, software's flashy and it's cool, it probably more aligns with like what I like to do. But what I love to do is leading and managing people. Like I love giving people opportunities. I love the fact that I've had at least 50% of my employees for more than 5 years, and I've been in business for 8. Like, so that to me is awesome. Like I've seen their growth. People have had kids, they've bought houses, or they've advanced in life. And I still love the before and after thing that happens in the painting business. Like that never gets old. Like I remember that as a kid. I remember seeing like after, like, that last hour, dude, like where you're putting the plates back on, and there's like this energy that you can't really describe unless you've done this, like where the customer's like, walking around and we're doing that final touch up and we're wiping countertops.
They've got that.
You can't beat it. Like it's the best.
Yeah.
Like you're transforming the place where they spend the most of their time. It's giving them a new perspective. You did your job. You got the check. You got the check an hour ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't like there's two types of customers. There's ones that give it to you an hour before, and there's ones that give it to you at the last possible minute. You know what I mean?
You're walking out the door slowly, waiting for that check to come.
Yeah, you're like, come on, is she going to write it? Do I really have to ask? You know what I'm saying? Just give me the dang check. I'll finish the job. That right there tells you I've been through it.
Yeah.
Okay, I've done this work. I've been the painter. I've been the crew leader. I've seen every type of homeowner. I know them like the back of my hand. I know how to manage them. I know what not to do. Been there.
I mean, we've all made those mistakes. Is you can't. I mean, I tell people all the time, like, you're never going to find the perfect customer, the perfect homeowner, but talking to, I mean, Mike, I think said it best, Mike Rossi, and in the fact that where you excel in this business as a painting contractor or a finisher is how you deal with them, those customers. Like we used to have, when I had my company, we had the reputation of dealing with the difficult customers, and everybody used to like, I don't see how you do it. And I'm like, it's just setting expectations and knowing how to talk to people. But if you're the guy that is willing to take on that challenge, and I always saw it as a challenge to get the one that every painter is telling you to run away from. That homeowner's crazy, don't work for her or him. You'll never get paid. They'll hold money. They'll nitpick everything to death. And I'd be like, all right, to me, I always saw that as a challenge. Like, come on, I'll take them.
Yeah.
You can charge more.
I will say this. Yeah.
And if you can manage the customer right, you can change the whole aspect. And then you just created a customer for life, multiple customers. We had one that no one would work for. Everyone disliked her. Got her on our side. 3 years in, 5 years in, she would call me, Zach, keys in the mail. We're going to Cabo. We're going to be gone for a month. There's a list on the bar. Done. Never even had to see her. But you had to put in the time to develop that relationship to where she would just give you the keys to her house, take off for a month, just get it done before I get back. That's all I care about.
It took me a long time to not think everyone was crazy. Does that make sense?
100%.
It really did. Like I really just thought anytime somebody was abrasive toward us, anytime somebody had really outlandish expectations, somebody really squeezed the last bit of our efforts to get, the job done, to not go, they're just crazy, or they're just, trying to get away with one, or, I had to develop a certain leadership mindset that it's called extreme accountability. And that is so important for me because it translates to my team, because ultimately everything's our fault. If we didn't set proper expectations, right? Or if we didn't vet the customer properly, or if we didn't clearly define what it is that we're responsible for. And ultimately, do we have a plan in place for when everything hits the fan? And the thing is that like these customers always, like, we're talking about the select few, dude. You're talking about the 0.01% out of the year, right? You're going to get them. They're coming. If they're not already here, you just got done one and one's coming, right? They've always made us better. Every one of them. We've used it as a learning experience. I've let go of people during those jobs that didn't rise to the occasion. Example, case in point, I ran a Facebook ad for my painting business, and the entire ad was about how great our prep is. And the customer hired us because they saw that prep. There was paper, plastic. We bubble wrapped this house, and it was like the perfect ad. Like people really liked it. So when we got to the job, what's that? Yeah. Right. So
it's like an episode of Dexter.
Yeah, dude, it's tight, so when we get to the job, the team that went didn't do any of that. Right. So I have 4 crews. So this was they didn't lay out the paper in the foyer. Lady just got new floors. They didn't mask the fan the way they saw it in the ad. And the customer started freaking out. Like this isn't what I thought I was getting. And my first reaction as a business owner is to try to make excuses and to try to say, well, and it's like, no, like we put that out. Who is responsible? First, it's me. Where was our checks and balances? Why didn't the manager SOP? Why didn't the manager? This is all my fault, So I had to really learn that. learn that aspect of business. But then what that does is it creates a downward momentum, right? So now we're on high alert. Now the customer's looking to make sure, like, they can't trust us. They have to manage the project. So we just focus so hard on that first day. That first day, if we just nail that first day, great experience, the pressure's off because they don't feel like they need to manage us, and we work in a much more calm environment. So that's the shift we made.
That's an awesome shift. And also you just got to let people know. I mean, as a business owner, you just have to know that it 9 times out of 10, it's not you as the business owner that they're mad. It does happen. They'll get mad at you. But usually when the 0.1% that really blow up, something else is going on. You're the sounding board. It's like, this is a horrible example. It's probably going to get me in trouble. It's like my wife just had a crap day at job. She comes home and she's just not happy. And you just got to let her vent it out. You just got to let the customers vent to you. I mean, it happens. I mean, they're going to get upset about stuff. And when there's something happens or they walk into the house and what their expectation was, even though you can't get inside their heads, like you don't know what their expectation is, but you didn't meet it. Whatever that expectation was that they had.
I got better at this after I got married.
All right. So now if we both, it's both of us getting in trouble then. You learn stuff along the way, doing stuff like that. I mean, talking to guys about, because that's one thing I get with some of my coaching customers or clients and helping them is just like, how do you manage the client's expectations? And I don't know about you, and I'd love to get your aspect on this, but like for me, I just was always taught that, and some people have this theory and some people don't. So it's an interesting take when it comes to like the estimate side. Like I was always taught and mentored that you set the expectations in the estimate. Very detailed. Like I was always, my estimates would be 2 pages, but it would be like, we're going to cover all furniture and flooring with masking paper. We're going to clean the trim. We're going to mask the trim. We're going to sand, go through every step of the entire process of painting the interior of our house or painting the exterior, caulk all wood to wood joints, pressure wash the entire house with 3,000, 4,000 PSI pressure washer, just go through the entire step. And then you have an SOP that matches that. So it doesn't matter what crew is on there, they know what to do. And then I see guys, and I've talked to Nick about it and talked to some other guys, even Mike or just various people in the industry. Some guys just, Nick says, what is it? You got to say what you're going to do. It's like a poem. I can't remember what he said. You got to say the step in like 7 words and apply 2 paints of walls, no ceiling.
Like a haiku.
Yeah, like a haiku. I mean, he talks about poetry. He tells the sales guys and his estimators to talk about poetry. And I was just, like, what's your take on that? Like, as far as setting the expectations in the estimate versus when you get to the job.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a gold standard that we can all lean toward, right? It's like, do the right things, cover the stuff, don't get paint where it's not supposed to go.
Yeah.
Prep the surface and apply the product and then clean it up. Like that's the gold standard. And then in between that is the actual scope of work. That's why they call it a scope, because in a scope, it's a focused aspect of the project. And that scope of work outlines what we're doing and what we're not doing. And you document it. And then you put it on a proposal in DripJobs. And then that same proposal gets converted into a work order. And I think there's a disconnect if you don't have that sort of system, because I know that there's some painting business owners out there that are texting their team what to do, right? So for me, like I realized that, wait a minute, I'm setting expectations in the sale.
Exactly.
And then what happens is in the production, all the customer wants, Zach, is this. They just want sales and production to be exactly the same, right? It's a very important topic. Okay. When the customer gets angry, this is sales. This is why. That's it. It's the sale. The expectations were set higher than what they received when they got the product. This is actually true in all elements of commerce. If you get an Airbnb and the pictures look different than what's there, people write a bad review. It's because they weren't expecting there to be gold doubloons in the room waiting for you. They just wanted exactly what they bought. When you have a company that thrives in business, it's because of this. Ready, Zach? This is for your, I know you know this, but this is for your viewers. Ready? Watch. This is what happens. Very subtle. It's happening. It's happening. Dude, that's it. That's how you run a 5-star business in the trades. See that little bit of a difference? I know this is silly.
I mean, it's something so small. You're right. If your production is 5% better, 3% better,
not even
than
1% better,
than your sales expectation that you set with the customer, it's over. Like, you're golden.
5-star company.
100%.
You're going all the way. Here's the thing. So we were talking about the system, and I'm a big system guy. I'm an efficiency guy. I look for ways to make everything efficient. So with that said, proposal gets converted to a work order. Now, this is a disconnect for a lot of companies, especially single owner operators who aren't used to delegating the production. Okay. And I bet a lot of people who listen to you are in that predicament where they don't want to hand over the brush. Okay. We're talking about a very sensitive topic. This was like me when I had to hand over the sales. Okay. So I'm not too far removed from your pain, but I will say this. The first step to that is to make sure that your production is on the same page as your sales. And that's through a work order with a detailed scope of work that exactly matches the proposal. Everyone needs to be on the same page. The customer has a proposal. The crew has a work order. These things need to match. Okay, this is what I need to do, right? Then we use Company Cam, which every business owner in the painting business should have Company Cam. One of my favorite accessory applications to DripJobs. And this allows the sales team to document imperfections and also to document things that we're not responsible for. There's been so many times where I had my team open up Company Cam, take a picture of paint splattered on the floor from a previous paint job and put an arrow to it and say old paint with a timestamp. And I had to use that to show the customer that it wasn't us, right? So good defense there. So these two things allow us to create synchronicity between sales and production.
Yeah. So you're having your sales team basically do the pre-inspection, and then you have your on-site guys do another pre-inspection before they start, or just get to work.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Like something that's blatantly obvious that like we think, are you going to get blamed for this? Like, and naturally people only see things once they are comparing it to a brand new paint job. It sticks out.
It makes the worst look. Makes what's already there look 10 times worse. I mean, they never noticed it before. Yeah. I mean, I wish Company Cam was around when I had my business. I don't think it's been around that long. I've seen ads for it. I've never used it. I've seen it. I've like, man, I wish that, because that was in a part of my SOP that I had. All my guys had, I had 4 crews and they all had interior painting, exterior painting SOP. So if something happened and I couldn't send a crew back to a job, or they called in sick and had to send another crew, your SOPs are the same. Everybody does the job the exact same way, step by step. Follow the process. And in that first couple processes was, we didn't have like a CRM project management software at that time. But, I had 3 or 4 softwares pieced together, just like you said earlier. And we had one where the guys they were required, I want a video of the room and I want pictures of every wall on an interior paint job, and they go into the software. One, as the applicator, where things go back easy, and you can match it. So if something's missing, I mean, I don't know about you, but I have probably can't even lost count of, you would walk into a job to do an interior repaint and they'd be like, oh, we're going to paint the living room. And there'd be like a $10 bill sitting on the mantle. It's obvious that, someone doesn't just leave a $10 bill around. They just kind of set it out there, guys would just take a picture of it, put a piece of tape and tape it down to the mantle, and then put the plastic on it. But, you know, I mean, it's those processes that, like you said, that set the example, that start the process. But man, I'm just thinking about having the sales guys do a pre-inspection. That's pretty genius. I like that thought process.
Yeah. Pictures of everything in the beginning. Well, that's how my system's set up now. Is it's all an estimating based system, at least for me at this stage in my operation, where the guys take the photos, they submit it to the office, and we estimate everything from the office. And that's been really great for us.
Okay. So, how I was taught, I'm going to kind of get off subject here a little bit, because this is one that's always been interesting to me when you come into the softwares, because I looked at a bunch of them. Jobber, they were just kind of starting to come out, and played with them. Like, my mentor, like I said earlier, always taught me, when you get, because all W-2, all my guys were W-2 employees. And I was mentored in the way of, you come into a project, you know what your rate is, whether it's $50 an hour, $75, whatever, you have your rate. All my crews were 2-man crews. And you go bid a job based on, I always bid jobs, even to this day. If I'm bidding a job, and I don't bid jobs anymore, I go on a job and I look at the number of hours. Like, I know a task is going to take X amount of hours, or prepping is going to take X amount of hours. So I'll go into, and let's just say an exterior of a home. I'll look at it and be like, 2 hours to pressure wash the front of this house. It's going to be 2 hours to caulk all the wood to wood joints. And it's going to be an hour to mask the brick. And then it's going to be, depending on the side, 2 hours to spray it, another hour to pull the plastic down. So add that up all the way around the house. Let's say you get to 80 hours. Well, I've got 2 guys. They're working 16-hour days, because I'm not paying overtime. So it's going to take 2 guys 5 days to do this project. I've always wondered, like, and the same thing with repairs. Oh, there's rot. It's going to take an hour to clean that out, and probably about another 30 minutes to put some Bondo, and 30 minutes to sand it out. So you got 2 hours in repairs. In the square footage world, this is one that I've never, I mean, I can do the correlation after I do the hours and come up with a square foot price. Repairs get a little weird when it comes into the square foot price, to me, in my brain, the way my brain works.
It does. It will, of course.
Like, does that function exist within, like, Paint Scout, to be able to go in and say, I'm going to put in hours and I've got an hourly rate, and it'll spit out an estimate?
Well, that's how it works in DripJobs. So that's production rate estimate.
Production rate. Okay.
Yep. So we have that feature where you're pretty much using your own experience, and then you're going to compare it to the rate. So what you want to try to do is you want to try to quantify what you know. And it's almost like downloading your knowledge into a calculator, so you can identify how much paint you're going to need and how much time it's going to take. I think you and I think about it this way, Zach. Let me ask you a question. You have a 10 by 10 bedroom, ceiling, walls, and trim. How much paint are you going to use?
Oh, you want to know my paint trick?
Yes.
I mean, trim is an experience. I mean, you know, you're not going to use, depending on doors, casing.
Give me a decimal.
But I mean, you've got 2 coats, quarter to 3/8 of a gallon.
Quart. Barely.
Quart, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get into,
okay, so quart for trim.
Walls, and this is a weird trick.
Walls. What do you say walls?
I was taught by one of my painters. His trick was, when I'd say, hey, how much paint do you need for this job? He'd visualize a garage door. It's about a gallon of paint. And then he would go through and be like, that's 3 garage doors. I need 3 gallons of paint.
I like that.
I mean, just something.
Okay, cool. I like, that's actually a great trick. And then, all right, so you say 1 garage door on the ceiling?
So you probably got one. You're going to have 1 garage door on the ceiling if it's different color. Let's say it's white. You've got 1 garage door on 10 by 10, and then you've got 2 garage doors on the walls.
Yeah. So production rate estimating is essentially typing in 10 by 10, and then the height of the wall, right? So you have, you have to get the wall space, because wall space is calculated differently than square footage, but you can use square footage for the ceiling. It's 10 by 10, it's 100 square feet. So if you look at the back of a paint can, it says 350. Generally speaking, you can cover 2 coats. It's 200 square feet of coverage. So 1 gallon should take care of the ceiling, right? Okay. Then for the walls, let's say you're at 100 square feet, times, let's say they're 8-foot walls. I'm not sure of that. I think it's like 300 square feet of wall space. 3 gallons makes sense, right? That's generally speaking 3 gallons. And then you have the little court on the trim. Okay. So that's easy for all of us. What gets tricky is when you have an entire house to do. And you're not going to do that in every single room. You're not going to just ballpark it. What you need to do is just get all the measurements, because we can take those measurements that we just came up with for our room, put them into DripJobs, so that every time 10 by 10 bedroom happens, it puts 1 gallon on the ceiling, 3 gallons on the walls, and a quart on the trim. But if we do 20 by 20, it'll do 2 gallons on the ceiling, it'll do 6 gallons on the walls, and it'll do a quart on the trim. And it really allows you to multiply and scale and amplify the estimate to save you time.
So who else is doing that besides you guys?
Paint Scout.
Paint Scout does that? Okay.
Paint Scout. Paint Scout. What's another one that does it? Sherwin-Williams bought them. Estimate Rocket has it.
Okay.
We all do it a little differently. I think we all do it a little differently. But it's generally the same concept. And then essentially you assign time. So you assign paint. We just went over paint. Then you assign time. So you'd say like, all right, how long would it take me to roll it out? Well, it would take me probably, if we could do 100 square feet in an hour of rolling, well, guess what? That's an hour for the ceiling. But what about the walls? Well, we said that was 300 square feet of wall space. So that's 3 hours. So we're at 4 hours. And then if we do the trim, that's only going to take us maybe an hour or 2. So you're at 4 hours, or you're at 5 hours. So that bedroom's 5 hours. Well, if you have 5 bedrooms, that's 25 hours.
Are you kind of doing the same thing? Because that's where, and that part's good. It's when you get into, and then this just, my brain's just curiosity. When you get into, you're walking through a furnished house. Well, not every room's going to have the same furniture. So your prep and cover is going to be different per room, or one room has crown, one room just has case and base, cased windows, just sill windows. To me, that's where I kind of, the whole production square footage rate. How much drywall repair? Are we going to retexture this bathroom? Are we pulling down this wallpaper?
Well, how we built it is, these are called, so you have areas, right? So your areas are going to be your bedroom. The substrate is going to be a wall, your trim, your ceiling, right? So in DripJobs, you can assign prep hours to areas and substrates. So if the room's filled with junk, you can assign 2 hours of prep to that room just to move the junk. If the wall needs to be mudded, drywall repaired, whatever, you can assign hours to that wall. So it's pretty granular.
You set your rate when you set up the software.
Correct. You set your rate, your hourly rate of labor. And whether you're doing production rates or not, you have a rate.
Yes.
If it takes you 3 days to do a job and you've charged $3,000 and you worked 30 hours, do the math. That's your rate.
I think that's the hardest part, is getting guys to understand their rate.
Yeah, but the thing is the reason why it's not, I'll tell you why it's not an urgent matter. And the reason why is because most painting businesses are single owner operator, right? They don't scale beyond one crew, most of them. So, and they make a good living doing that, but they're very labor dependent. So they have to be very involved in the production. Now, when you want to grow beyond that level, and you have to get someone else to do estimates for you because you're managing operations, you're networking, it's very hard to translate your knowledge, your garage door trick, to someone else. And what this does is it allows you to systemize the estimating to where your grandmother can go in with a measuring wheel and plug in the information, and there's consistency in your estimating. And this is what franchises do.
And then it just becomes Yeah.
Yeah. And then it just becomes a thing. So here's a great example for how this works in another industry. We are not pioneers of this concept. If you go to the Toyota dealership and you bring your car in for service, they give you a quote based on the hours that have been allocated and assigned to the element of the vehicle set by the manufacturer. So there's a baseline. So in other words, PCA is really the only ones that have kind of like a Bible for production rates in painting. So they pretty much outline, okay, a standard production rate on stucco when you roll it out is going to be 100 square feet per hour. I don't know if that's accurate or not. So that's the baseline of what a healthy individual is able to accomplish on repainting stucco. So you're pretty much just using, like, that's what they use when they repair cars. So if they're like, okay, in alignment, we're assigning 1 hour to that. And this allows them to quote all the different elements of your car based on the labor hours, which is how much time it takes, but the sell rate, which is how much they're selling you the labor for, and of course the cost rate, which is how much they're paying the tech to do it. So if there's a 10-hour project, the cost rate might be $50 an hour to the dealership, but their sell rate is 100. So they're making $50 an hour in profit. And that's how it works in the painting business.
And that's how your software is averaging that as well.
Exactly. So with exteriors, I like it on exteriors because it's much easier because we're just measuring the perimeter and we're measuring the wall space. But there's elements of the exterior that need to be accounted for. I remember I used to never charge extra for a chimney, right? I just never did it. I don't know why. I just kind of just added it into the house, right? But the problem is that when you have two houses side by side, they could be the same house, but if one had a chimney and one didn't, I'd still price them the same. But what I did was I started recognizing that chimneys are a pain in the butt and they take time. So we have a substrate that we add to our exterior list of products that says chimney, and I allocate 3 hours to a chimney. And customers being charged for that. You know, if you go in and you get your wiper fluid changed or you get an oil change, everything's charged for when you get your car worked on. Why aren't we doing it when it comes to painting?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking about you saying that and thinking about how I know guys do estimating in square footage. And I'm just thinking about going back to my mentor. And I think that's why he just never did anything by square foot. Because if you're looking at a chimney, you're going, well, that's going to take the extension ladder, and that's going to take a guy holding the ladder and taking a guy climbing it, So yeah, that chimney's going to take me 4 hours to get up there and paint that chimney.
So we have a catalog. You just go in and you click chimney. You add corbels. Corbels is another one. So all those individual corbels, I bid a job, and I had a team of 3 on corbels for the whole day because they were going red, and they had to be coated twice. And after that, I added a substrate called corbels. So now the corbels, you just add in the corbels, you put how many they are, and I assign time to each corbel. So our estimates are extremely proportional, which is fair to the market. Because if I have a house with corbels and I have one that's not, and these neighbors communicate with each other and say, why was his less than mine? I say, you have 40 corbels on your house.
And you could even add another one for I used to charge more for bold accent colors. If you want a red front door and red shutters, well, that's going to cost more.
So I wanted to do something special for, your listeners, Zach, because I think one of the things that I'm passionate about is helping people, man. These concepts might sound complex, but really the software is designed to eliminate the complexity, and you just go in and you enjoy the software, right? We don't wonder how Tesla's cars drive. We just get in them and they drive, right? So for me, it's I would love an opportunity really to help your people here. And I'm going to give anyone that listens to this podcast 100 days of DripJobs for free. So
That
this
is
an
awesome.
exclusive offer. 100 days, dude. I want, you need software. You're not going to win in years to come if you don't have a good software. You can't compete. Customers are looking for this when making decisions. It used to be the carbon fiber paper is what they would compare. Now people are printing estimates. Now it's going to be who has the best presentation and the best follow-up to make an educated decision. So the promo code for this is going to be bearded 100.
Bearded 100.
Okay. Bearded 100. You go to DripJobs.com, put that in, you're going to get 100 days of Drip Jobs for free.
That is awesome, man. Oh, God dang it. Where were you like 5 years ago? Killing me. I mean, I just thinking about all the technology that's come up, and sometimes I'm like, should I start another painting company? Would it be? No, I don't want employees. I don't want to do that. But yeah, we'll do some stuff out there.
We want to help, man. This is my first passion is let me help as many people as possible. Let's get software in their hands. We will train you on the software. So we actually have training that we do for free. So when you sign up, you get a free onboarding. We do unlimited refresher sessions. So, if like this is your first big software, a CRM, like you're going to have a learning curve. There's so many features that I can't get into today, but do a demo. If you want to do a demo first and then mention that you heard about us on Zach's podcast, that's fine too. Or you just go sign up and we'll just get you right into an onboarding. But, give us a shot.
So what can people expect after the 100 days? Because, most of those guys that are small, they make good money, but they also run a good budget. What kind of investment, like a monthly investment, are we looking at?
So the standard package is $147 a month. That gets you all the automations, all the follow-ups, all the features, invoicing, proposals, change orders, work orders, job schedule, all the things you need to run your business. This isn't anything new. To add production rate estimating, it's an additional $100. So you're looking at about $247 a month for the complete package. But think about it. If I'm giving you 100 days free, you're almost getting like, what is that, $750 in value to hopefully, I think this will happen. You're going to make that within those 3 months in customers that accept your proposals, follow-ups that follow up with leads, follow up with customers. Even if it just saves you time, your time's valuable. You have to learn how to quantify your time. And that alone could be value enough. We want it to pay for itself. That's my vision for the software.
Nice. And then there's a feature that we haven't hit on that I'd like to, that I think is crucial. It kind of leads to what we were talking about earlier with getting leads while you're sleeping, while you're working. Was, if I'm not mistaken, you have a feature on DripJobs where you have a form that you can send people to, like a prequal. Is that correct?
This is a big one. Yeah. So this is huge. This huge deal. So think about it this way. I will say this, and I can't get too deep into this topic, but because of time, but I'll try. Customers have a short attention span. In other words, they have options. Back 20 years ago, you'd get a painter's name from a neighbor and you were committed because you didn't have another neighbor that knew a painter. So now you have a new neighbor and that neighbor's name is Google. Okay. And Google is more trusted than the guy next door because the beauty of it is you don't have to worry about a relationship being tarnished because of some random contractor not fulfilling their promises. This all comes down to risk. A lot of psychology here. Anyway, long story short, people will call you, and if you don't answer the phone, they'll just call someone else. So most of us are hanging up on customers. We're hanging up the phone because we don't have time to answer. We're in the middle of an estimate. We're painting or we're sleeping. The cool thing about DripJobs is we have a form. So that form allows you to answer the phone, have a nice little conversation, and then say, hey, I'm going to send you a link. Can you fill that form out for me? And then once I have an opportunity, we'll get you scheduled. What that does is it eliminates the pressure, which is finding the exact time and date that works for both of you, which is incredibly difficult to do. And it also eliminates you having to sit on the phone for 2 to 3 minutes to get all the information. It's a poor experience. So what this form does is, again, open up the DripJobs app, click the button, send the link, customer fills out all the information. That information goes into the system, organizes the customer for you, sends a follow-up, and puts them in a queue where you can decide based on the answers of the questions when to schedule that customer where it best fits your schedule. So it's a really powerful tool that literally is one of our most highly sought after features.
I was talking to a guy about it, and I was like, I saw someone use it, and I was like, and I know we're running, but I was like, all right, go check out Tanner Software. He has a function of a form. Like, it's a soft sell. People don't always even want to talk. They just want to know what the price is going to be. They're a cold call. They're warm lead. They just want to know what a ballpark of their kitchen cabinet. With this form, you can get all their data. They can upload pictures.
Custom questions. You can ask whatever you want. Yeah. Upload pictures. Oh, yeah.
And then you can send them a soft estimate and say, hey, thank you. Appreciate you reaching out. Based on the pictures, you're probably going to be somewhere between the $8,000 and $12,000. That's the ballpark. I'd love to come by and give you a more definite number. Click on this link. You can get to my calendar and book a day. And one, you already know they're more serious because they filled out the form. It's more than a cold lead. I mean, it's like a warm sales because they filled it out. They took the time. So they're somewhat serious. Second, if they go and book, all you got to do is show up and close it. You've already given them a ballpark number. So you know if you're within that, you're there. You just got to go build the relationship and close the sale. I mean, what could have been done with that? I mean, what painters can do with that? I mean, you can take the link, create your own ads and put the link in there and have it generating leads for you in your funnel. Like, guys, the form for generating customer information and a lot of the stuff's already in there that you don't think about. Timeline, budget, pictures, interior, exterior. I mean, it's already done for you. Like, that to me is worth its weight in gold. Because you're having estimates done
even
for you.
We have people that honestly like aren't tech savvy, but like there's a small portion of people that just use that feature. They don't want anything else. They just use the booking feature.
The booking feature with the forms is genius. And then as they grow, you can grow into that other stuff. But I mean, that alone is worth $150 a month. I mean, it's just amazing. But anyways, I know you got to go. We got stuff going on. But before we close up, one of my favorite things is, I want the community to get to know Tanner with Drip, but Tanner outside of Drip, outside of Premium. Like, what do you do, man? What's your free time? What's a passion that you have that might surprise everybody?
Dude, I run 3 businesses. The only free time I have goes to my family. I don't work on the weekends.
That's awesome. I
try my best not to work at night. At 5 o'clock. I don't have time for anything else. I don't need to do anything else. It's just family. It's kids. I have kids.
Okay.
Wife.
How old are your kids?
So we're doing things. I got young kids, 3 and 5.
Okay.
One on the way. Got one on the way.
Oh, congrats.
So my third. Thank you.
I'm 7 and 3 and done.
But yeah, man, it's family. When you're a high level entrepreneur, like I pride myself in being like there's not much time for much else right now. And that's okay with me. It's I don't split my time any other way. I take care of my business, my employees, and my family. That's it.
Nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, family is number one on my list.
My hobbies get kicked to the side, dude. It is what it is. I had to choose. And sometimes you got to make tough decisions like that, dude. Like, it is what it is.
103 years.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, hey, before we jump off, shoot out your socials. Make sure everyone's following you, both Drip, Premium, so they can check everything else going out.
I got a podcast. Would love to have you on sometime. Contractor Secrets. I got Instagram, official Tanner Mullen, DripJobs.com. And then, of course, guys, please, if you want that offer, it's bearded100 coupon code at DripJobs.com. Try it out and then tell Zach so we can make sure he gets some credit for it, please.
Yeah, definitely, man. Guys, Tanner, awesome episode. I'll put the coupon code down in the notes of this episode, and we'll also make sure it's out there on social media so guys can go out there and try it out. Check it out. If no other feature, I'm telling you, the form option, the booking form is amazing, but being able to go in and speed up estimates, because that kills a lot of painters. They won't go do them because they're busy. You got to continue to do estimates, guys. But Tanner, awesome conversation. I appreciate it. Any last bit of advice for the community out there?
Embrace technology.
Love it. Love it. All right, man. Appreciate you coming on. Thank you guys for listening. Every Monday, new episode drops. Check us out, and we'll see you next time.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the Bearded Finisher Podcast. We thank everyone for joining. Keep hustling, keep learning, and never settle for anything less than your best. Remember, the path to perfection is a journey, not a destination. Until next time.